Writing songs with good melodies and creative lyrics can be a challenging task for any songwriter. And so today I'm giving you 12 helpful tips that songwriters can use to make that process at least a little bit easier, backed by quotes from some of the world's most successful musicians. Let's get into it. What's up guys, I am Legend with Ditto Music here, and I'm willing to guess that you're probably a musician if you're watching this video, which means at some point you may be looking for a distributor for your music. With Ditto Music, you can release unlimited songs to all the major streaming platforms while maintaining 100% of the royalties that you make from your streams. Check the link down below for a 30-day free trial to give Ditto Music a try today and see how you like it. Also in today's video, we're going to be giving away another great microphone from Shure. This is going to be the Shure PGA48 Vocal Microphone. If you want a chance to win this microphone, be sure you're subscribed, leave a like on this video, and comment down below one of your favorite tips that help you to write your songs. Let's get into the video. So tip number one, where do you start? John Legend says, I have a structured songwriting process. I start with the music and try to come up with musical ideas. Some people start with the lyrics first because they know what they want to talk about, and they just write a whole bunch of lyrical ideas. But for me, the music tells me what to talk about. Now, starting your song can be one of the toughest parts to writing the lyrics for your song. One way is you can start with a beat that you've already made or one that you purchased from somebody else, and you come up with simple melodies or chorus ideas to this song. This is what we like to call top lining. Now, of course, you can start at any point in your song wherever the ideas flow the most, but starting with a chorus can be pretty helpful because that is your main central point for the song, the part that you want to be the climax that everybody remembers. So once you can establish the idea and theme of your song in a melody and the lyrical content of your song through the chorus, I would say sometimes that it's generally much easier to come up with verses and bridges after that because you already have that strong foundation set. As John Legend said, some writers prefer to write the lyrical content first because they already have an idea of the type of song that they want to write or the message that they want to get out in their song. So I would say don't limit yourself to how you choose to start your songs because one day the music may come first, the other day the lyrics might come first. This is all up to you and your process. Tip number two is going to be don't rush yourself and take your time. Rod Stewart says, I deliberate over the lyrics. I really do. I'll come up with one line in a day, and then it might be a couple of days before I come up with the rhyming line. And this is something that I can relate to the most because there are some songs that I've written that have taken me 3 years to finish. People want music that they can relate to, and they can't relate to something if it is forced out because then it's just disingenuous. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the last tip because sometimes in us trying to figure out the melodies and lyrics of our song, we tend to want the results now instead of letting that thing, slow cook in that slow cooker. If you know what your song is going to be about, and if you know how you want to get there or what you want the end result to sound like, regardless of how you go about this process, you just want to be sure that you take your time, you take as much time as you need to finish your song. Just be careful not to step into the songwriter quicksand and overthink everything that you're writing. And slowly you get sucked down to where you don't release any music at all because you're just stuck in this infinite loop of, I don't know what to write, or I can't figure out the perfect way to write it. This doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound good. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, okay? It just needs to communicate realness, authenticity, and something that's catchy. Tip number three is going to be to take advantage of the spontaneous inspiration. Connor Oberst says, you can't manufacture inspiration, so a lot of it is still a waiting game for me. So you know those moments where you're driving home in the car or you're sitting in the shower and then a random super sick song idea comes to your head? This happens to me all the time. Even if you're not in the studio recording when these ideas come to you, you want to make sure that wherever you are, you track these ideas down, whether it's lyrics, whether it's the melody, whether it's even the musical ideas for the beat if you're a producer. And when you do get back to the studio, you can listen back to these ideas and let that influence whatever you create that day. Inspiration is definitely not an infinite thing. It has a finite source and it comes in waves. It's not something that's just constantly, firing at you. So even if you don't use the entire ideas of the lyrics or the melodies that come to you in those moments of inspiration, you can still take bits and pieces from these things to kind of Frankenstein your song together. I mean, that's what creativity is. You're essentially learning how to piece these things together as you see fit to help you get that end result you're looking for. Tip number 4 is going to be write from your personal experience. Taylor Swift says, my experience with songwriting is usually so confessional. It's so drawn from my own life and my own stories. This is one of the reasons why love and breakup songs is some of the most popular songs and the most effective songs in music today, because nearly every human on the planet at some point is going to go through some sort of heartbreak, whether that's romantic or friendship, or they lost a job. But while it is of course okay for someone to write a breakup song that hasn't gone through a breakup, or if you're good at writing love songs and you've never been in love before, I will still say that having that personal experience will give you the edge in being able to write a better song over someone who hasn't necessarily been through these things, because they're having to draw from someone else's experience. That doesn't always go over well. Tip number 5 is going to be to take inspiration from everywhere, everything, and everyone. Doja Cat says, I really pull from everyone. I'm absorbent. I'm not saying I'm even half as talented or a quarter as talented as any of the people I'm inspired by. But if I hear a beat Busta Rhymes would absolutely kill, I would use my voice to do a flow similar to his. This is why I always like to tell people to not restrict yourself to a certain genre that you write or even that you listen to. Because the more eclectic your taste is, the more that you kind of draw from, the better chances you have in making a song that not only sounds true to you, but it sounds unique and different from, all the other musicians out there. Think about Lil Nas X for a second. He came out with Old Town Road, and I know this song is pretty old, but Old Town Road was a rap country hybrid song that just went nuts when it came out because it did mesh these two styles together. So open up your mind and see what else is out there, Tip number 6 is going to be to remember to have fun and challenge yourself. Dua Lipa says, while you are creating it, have fun with it. You want to do something that you haven't done before and you want to challenge yourself. I'm doing it for me. I'm making something that I love. When you start to make music that is only serving the purpose of trying to be like everybody else, you'll lose your own voice. Instead of it being this fun, creative process, it seems like more of a job where you're just showing up and doing the mundane. You're doing somebody else's work. And that's not what music should be. We should be able to be creative ourselves and have fun with the things that we want to make, the way that we want to make them, and how we want them to sound. So just remember that when you're creating your songs. Songwriting tip number 7 is going to be to collaborate with other artists. Talib Kweli says, I like collaboration because first of all, I'm good at writing lyrics. I don't know how to make beats. I don't play instruments, and I'm not a good singer. So even when you see a solo album of mine, it's still a collaboration. So at some point in your music production career, you're gonna suffer writer's block. And there's a few different ways to defeat this, but one of the main ways that I would say helped me, aside from taking inspiration from other people, like in the last tip, is to collaborate with artists who have a different stance or a different workflow, a different style than my own. Why is this beneficial? Because like Talib says, there are certain things that you don't know how to do. That's just real. We don't know how to do everything. Or there's certain things that maybe you do know how to do, or you do know how to write, or you do know how to arrange, but there's somebody else out there that can do it either better than you can, or they do it in a different way that inspires a different style of writing in your own self. It's cool to work with people that have the similar outlook as you, or similar creative process, similar sound, but one of the most important tools is to work against the grain, aka to work with people who don't fit these exact same molds as you. Collaboration can come in many shapes and forms, and even one of the ways that I preach about is using loops and samples to help you to, craft songs that are outside of your box as well, if you're a producer. Tip number 8 is going to be to keep it simple and then build. Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine says, the combination of 3 chords and the right lyrical couplet can be as heavy as anything in the Metallica catalog. And I can say this is true for me probably half the time. When I first started my music production and songwriting, way back, I used to make my songs so complex, but not complex in a good way. It was just tons of instrumentation. I tried to put 40 vocal stacks on every single song that I recorded, instead of keeping things as simple as they could be. It wasn't until I got the experience later on in writing songs to simpler beats, or writing songs that had simpler vocals, and then building on that later on if I felt it was necessary, that I learned that this is a thing that actually works. Less is more. Try it out. Tip number 9 is going to be to make sure that you take your necessary breaks. Leonard Cohen says, I wish I were one of those people who wrote songs quickly, but I'm not. It takes me a great deal of time to find out what the song is. This is a perfect example of someone who takes their time, someone who doesn't try and rush a song out, but they take breaks when it's necessary. They take breaks when there's nothing coming to them. The inspiration is not there. That spontaneity is not there. So instead of trying to force it out, you take a break, go play a video game, go take a walk outside, just take a step back from your music in whatever way that you can and for however long that you need. And then when you come back, you'll have kind of like a refreshed mind. It's sort of like taking a musical nap of sorts. Like you're not taking a nap, although you could. I take plenty naps. Writing a song from scratch can be extremely tiring mentally and as a result, physically. And so rather than pushing yourself and making yourself even more tired and more frustrated, which is gonna hinder your songwriting anyway, it's good to take those breaks that you need when you need them. Tip number 10 is going to be don't overthink it. Alex Turner from the Arctic Monkeys says, if anyone asked me about songwriting, I guess I'd say that you just gotta do it. So we can be our own worst critics as musicians, as singers and songwriters. We judge ourselves the most. But as I said before, perfection is the enemy of your creativity. And so if you try to perfect everything that you're writing, everything that you're singing, everything that you're producing, you will get nowhere super fast, okay? You don't want to overplan, you don't want to overthink, you don't want to overanalyze your own music. You want to, again, have fun with what you're creating, because this is the only way that things are going to start to come out naturally and with the true intent that you have. People can generally tell when you overthink or you become a try-hard in your lyrical content or your music production. And so you definitely don't want to overthink your music. You want things to just be as fun and as smooth as possible. Just sit down and just start singing. Just start doing stuff. This is the way that I write my music, and as stupid as that sounds, it's really helpful to me. I feel like I've written the best music that I've ever written in this day and age because of the fact that I spend the least amount of time planning songs and the most amount of time in the song, feeling the song as it comes to me, in that spontaneous inspiration. Tip number 11 is going to be to ask for feedback. I feel like I just did Wakanda Forever. What was that? So Beck says, I enjoy the collaboration. I always envied people in bands who got to have that interaction. It's a nice change helping other people with their music and not being all about what I'm trying to do myself. As someone who's the only person listening to your song, your lyrics for hours on end as you're mixing, as you're writing, you start to lose sight of how good or how bad your song actually is, right? So if you ask for the opinion of someone else, how can I make this song better? Or is this song good enough as it is? They'll give you some information that maybe you didn't think about yourself that you can implement into your song now. Feedback can be so invaluable to musicians, but I know sometimes we get in our own heads, we kind of get too cocky about our own music. It's important not to get so enveloped in defensive about your music that you don't open yourself up to, I don't want to say criticism, but feedback from other artists. Because again, we only have one brain, and sometimes having a second brain, a second opinion to tell us about our music can be very beneficial. And finally, tip number 12 is don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid to fail. Johnny Cash says you build on failure. You use it as a stepping stone. Close the door on the past. You don't try to forget the mistakes, but you don't dwell on it. You don't let it have any of your energy or any of your time or any of your space. I can speak as a living example. I'm someone who is deathly afraid of failure. It freaks me out to my core. And that can come in the form of writing songs that suck, or producing beats that suck, or making videos that suck. Is this one of them? No, it's not. I hope not. The thing about fearing failure is that instead of subjecting yourself to this mental pain of failing and embarrassment, you play it safe. It's gonna do nothing but hinder you, nothing but stop you dead in your tracks. Failure is a daily part of life, especially as a musician in this day and age trying to be heard. Every person who makes music is going to experience this at some point in their career. The only thing that needs to happen is you need to be trying continuously. You need to be creating when you have the opportunity and the inspiration to create. You will never get a grasp of your own capabilities, nor will you have the chance to grow, because failure is that opposition. You have to feel that pressure of failure. You have to feel the pressure of these things around you as you're creating this new, wondrous, shiny work of art, because that's what's going to be what molds you into the artist of the future. And if it fails, but just know that's another step forward. As much as it feels like backwards, it's a step forward in the right direction because you're pushing yourself against that fear of failure to become something better over time. So that is it for today's video. Those are my 12 tips for songwriters, featuring quotes from some of the most popular musicians who have been there before. Once again, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below for your chance to win the Shure PGA48 Vocal Microphone. Hit that subscribe button if you felt that this video was useful to you, and I will see you next one. Deuces!